there's not many industries that you can operate a business and not need a degree.
Yeah.
And this is clearly one of them. I think it helps me.
Yeah.
It helps me because I put a focus on marketing.
Yeah.
I really struggled with that part, though.
Why is that?
Because as an independent broker, I had to market myself.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that was difficult for me. And again, we kind of talked about this before this podcast. I'm not comfortable.
You're going to be a spotlight.
I don't like to be the spotlight.
Welcome to Agent Success Podcast. If you're a real estate agent looking to succeed in today's crazy market, well, you're in the right place. Each week, we talk with successful real estate agents willing to share their expert insights, trade secrets, and mindset that help them to succeed. There's no fluff, just straight to the point content that prioritizes one thing above all, your success. So without further ado, let's cut to the chase. Welcome to another episode of Cut to the Chase. I am Tim Chase, your host, where we talk about all things real estate, how to succeed in real estate, and the people behind the success in real estate. And I have a very special guest with me today. Would you like to introduce yourself, special guest?
Hi, Nicole Strom with the Platinum Group Realtors.
And how long have you been doing real estate, Nicole?
Almost 4 years.
Almost 4 years. Okay. What'd you do before?
I was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay. For how long?
18 years.
18 years. Wow. So you took your kid from 0 to 18 and you're like, I've had enough of this crap.
Yeah,
and you're done?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Sweet. All the time here in Springs?
No, we were an Army family. So
Okay.
13 moves under our belts.
Oof.
So about every 2 to 3 years we moved.
So the term PCS doesn't scare you. It just,
No.
it is what it is.
It is what it is.
All right. How many children?
We have got 3.
Okay. Yeah. And ages and boys, girls?
2 boys and a girl.
Okay.
So 26, 24, and 18.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's a, they're just old enough to act like they don't need you, but still need you. But you just have some freedom. You don't have a little, you don't have a little kid hanging on your belt everywhere you go, and
That's
you have
right.
a leash going through the grocery store or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I hope you don't have a leash on your
No,
kids at this point.
no, that would be weird. But
That would be very weird.
yeah, it would be. Yeah.
So, what branch of service?
Army.
Army. Okay. Live anywhere cool?
Oh yeah, we lived in several cool places. We hit all southern states, except Florida and Louisiana. We've been stationed in California twice, Hawaii, and then the best place is here.
Okay. Anywhere out of country?
No.
13 moves.
Yes.
And you stayed in the U.S.
Yes.
Wow.
Germany, anywhere in Europe, anywhere overseas was always on our top preferred list.
And you just never got it?
Never got it.
Wow. Well, you landed here. How long have you been in Colorado?
5 years.
5 years. Okay. And when you moved to Colorado, so your children, your youngest was 13 or so, right? And your oldest was just old enough to be out of the house for a couple of years, probably college or military or something like that. When you moved to Colorado Springs, now you're used to moving. So there's when you move, there's always something that you didn't quite expect. And at least now I don't move a lot, right? In fact, I'm from Southern Colorado. I still live in Southern Colorado, right? But when I go somewhere, there's usually something that's different for me. Like if I go visit a new city or a new location, I have it in my head of what I think it's going to be like. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be cool. Da, 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 da. It's never exactly what I think it's like. Was there anything in moving to Colorado Springs that was different than what you had anticipated?
Yeah. So my husband had traveled here because he was Army Space. So he'd been in Colorado Springs months at a time.
Okay.
So he'd kind of shared about how wonderful and how great it was. So I kind of had an expectation that we were going to love it.
Yeah.
Plus, I really wanted it to because I wanted my adult children to come with us.
Yeah.
But I didn't really anticipate loving it as much as I did.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know where you were going with that. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Usually it takes about 4 to 6 months to kind of get settled.
Okay.
And to kind of start going, this is home, right? It always takes quite a bit. Probably not so much the early part of our career because it was just kind of what was expected. But my husband did 31 years, so I was like, we're at the tail end. Can we be done? But I didn't anticipate being able to know as many people as we did here. I've never lived somewhere, never moved somewhere where I knew people.
Oh, so these are people that maybe were stationed somewhere else that you had. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that space community.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a pretty large city.
Yeah.
And we've got several military bases, but
5 installations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't I didn't know we were going to know so many people and how interconnected this city truly is.
Wow, that's really cool. It's bizarre to me, and I'm not. I'm not from somewhere else, but so I already know people. But it's interesting here. I lived in Denver, and it was totally opposite. But I run into people I know all over town, and there's like 750,000 people in El Paso County, right? And I still bump into people. Sometimes my wife, when we go somewhere, she's like, "Please just don't see anybody just like, can we just have like a dinner where you're not walking over to somebody's table like, oh hey Bob, how you doing?"
You can't do that here.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's really bizarre.
We went to a housewarming, so we had neighbors. We were stationed at Vandenberg Air Force Base, and so we had several neighbors that all PCS'd at the same time. So we went to an open house or a housewarming for one of our past neighbors, and we'd been here for about 3 weeks, and there were 42 people at that housewarming, and we knew 40.
Oh my gosh!
And
you were here for how long? For
3 weeks.
Holy cow! So it was basically like a reunion of people, like, oh, Mary, Joe, Sally, how you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
kind of awesome.
And of all the places we've lived, and I don't want to like pump up Colorado Springs, but I clearly love it because this is where we decided to stay. I've never lived somewhere that was so military friendly, like the city itself. I mean, everyone in it is pretty friendly, but the city itself really puts forth a lot of effort to help those incoming military families.
Yeah.
They do surveys when they're PCSing away to see like what part of the family process they loved the most, like what they can do better.
Yeah,
so,
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. So, would you say that you specialize in military families, or what do you have kind of a specialty? Like, what do you mainly spend your time on?
Yeah, I'm probably predominantly on the buyer side.
Okay.
I actually ran the numbers of about 85% on the buy side, but I don't want to. I don't want to just niche and just serve that military family, although they are like my family, right? I do want to. I do understand specifically what that process looks like for them, but that can hold true for anyone moving here. Whether if they're relocating, even from a different part of the city. Like I had a closing for a client that is from Fountain, and we closed up at Capital Title.
Yeah.
And she's like, I've never been past North Academy. And I'm like, what?
You're like, wow.
She goes, wow, the houses are big and they're far apart. And
that's funny. I feel the same way when I live on the west side of town. And so I get downtown to my office. I'm like, okay, this is comfortable. And I start going east a little bit, and I'm like, okay, Academy, it's getting a little crazy. And I get out to Powers. I'm like, this is bananas. What world am I living in? This is totally nuts, right? But I can get there in 10, 15 minutes, right? So it's not like it's a long drive, but there's so many different areas in the city.
And you have everything you need right there where you work and you live.
Which is kind of awesome, right?
You don't.
When I was up in Denver, I remember we were trying to go to Walmart, and my son was born up there. We had lived up there for maybe like 5 years or something like that. And there was like, this is, before we really had computers. I mean, the computers existed, but it wasn't like a normal thing to have, right? I'm like, where the heck is Walmart? Like this should be like a normal thing to, late 90s, early 2000, like where is this place? And everything was so spread out that, you had like little shopping centers and stuff, but the main living stuff was so spread out. It was hard to really exist in some areas too much. Whereas here, like on the west side, I can get anything I need, like a Costco, but I'm still kind of like way up against the mountains. Now, if I'm way over on the east side, you can still, they have, it's like everything's kind of separate. You have a section over there. And if you're in Fountain, you can come up Powers and you can get to, I'm using Costco as an example, right? But if you're up north, you can come down Powers, you can come down I-25 and exit on Nevada. So it's easy to get a lot of different places. Have you ever been on top of Pikes Peak and looked at how the roads travel in Springs? Have you ever been up Pikes Peak?
No.
You've never been up Pikes Peak?
I'm scared of heights. And so Eric's been up several times. That's my husband. And he talks about the drive up and the drive back. And no. I would be, especially, yeah. No.
What you need to do when you go up there, because you definitely have to go up there.
I hear the donuts are really good up there.
Yeah, at the ranger station.
Yeah.
So when you're going up, your mind is going to mess with you a little bit because you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm on top of this huge mountain. So I've ridden my bike on that road probably 100 times, right? What you realize when you stand out on the road, it's a huge road. Like it's way bigger than a normal 2-lane road. Yeah. But when you're driving, you're like, it's psychologically, it's freaking you out. So if you just pull over somewhere, you get out and you walk around, you're like, there's a lot of space here, like a lot of space. When you get to, what is tree line? 11, 12, something like that?
12, yeah.
Yeah. When you get to tree line, it's cool because everything just cuts off.
Up.
Yeah, it just cuts off, and it's like you're on Mars. And there's just these rolling hills of rock. There's some varmints that pop up from time to time. All the trees just dead.
So at the top, what do the lines look like for those roads? Is it?
It's interesting, and you have to look for a minute, but you'll notice all of the original part of Colorado Springs, all the roads are going directly towards Pikes Peak.
East-west.
Which is very interesting, right? Because when you're here, it's like you're whining all over the stinking place, on the roads. But all the main roads like Platte and Bijou and Pikes Peak and all those, it's going directly toward Pikes Peak, which is kind of interesting. You should go up there sometime.
Yeah, I'll have to. Not just for the donuts.
I don't think they sell real estate up on Pikes Peak though.
No,
yeah.
they don't.
I think they have a ranger station that checks your brakes because when people ride their brakes when they come down, so the brake fluid heats up. And then it get air bubbles in it, and their brakes will fail. So they actually.
See, now I'm not going to go.
No, but check this out. They take this heat gun, and it was like this challenge. I would tell my wife because we used to go up there all the time, right? I just loved the mountain. I don't know why. There's
well, it's beautiful.
There's fishing. There's mountain biking. You can come down tree line and pop into Manitou. There's lots of different things you can do there. But I used to have like this personal challenge of like, how cool can my brakes be when I get to the ranger station? Like, because they'll take a heat gun and they'll aim it at your brakes on your front wheels.
And if it's a certain temperature,
if it's too hot, they tell you pull over for an hour or half hour or whatever it is. Whereas if you're using your downshifting, then it doesn't heat up so much. You should go up there. It'd be a lot of fun.
So what was the goal that you had? To never have to pull over? You said that you had a challenge to yourself.
Challenge to have the coolest brake, but not coolest like cool, but like coolest in temperature wise. I would never have to pull over, but I wanted them to just be like, I want the air to cool them down enough to where I wasn't touching my brakes. So I was trying to use the engine to actually cool it down.
So do you have a manual then?
No.
Oh.
Well, I mean, I do own a manual, but this wasn't a manual.
Okay.
This was in a 4Runner that we actually bought a 4Runner when my son was born in 2003. We still have the 4Runner. It has 300,000 miles on it, and we actually gave it to him when he was 16. So
there you go.
He came home from the hospital in the car.
And he's
shows you a little bit of frugal behavior, I guess. Just pass it down to him like, hey, take care of it.
It makes sense.
Yeah. So when you, what part of town do you live in first?
We live up in Monument.
Up in Monument, okay. When you are doing real estate, do you have a preferred area that you, like if somebody says, hey, where should I live in? So, because let's say you're dealing with military, right?
Yeah.
Now, you're going to have a preference. We all have preferences, right? But you have to be careful as a real estate agent. Like, where should I live? What's the best area to live in? Because there are some questionable areas and there's some very good areas. How would you answer that to somebody?
It really depends on if they're, because for me and for our family, every time we PCS'd or every time we moved, it was about schools. So it really depends on the family and the individual that's purchasing. So do they have school age kids, and are schools that priority for them? And at that point, I typically go from there. So if they don't have school age kids, it's typically about how much of a commute that they want to have, and then that's center, like where they work, and then we work out from there.
So do you ever let them know that in Colorado Springs you can choice into schools?
Yeah.
So you can kind of live where you want and kind of go to the school district you want.
Absolutely.
I don't know of anybody who's ever been denied the choice in.
The only time you ever get denied is if you're asking for Cheyenne.
Down by Broadmoor? Okay.
Because they're full. They don't allow choice in.
Really?
I mean,
didn't know that.
I'm not going to say that. They're full, so they can't keep those openings.
So my son went to Air Academy High School.
Yeah.
And we had to choice in because we live in D11, and that's D20. And so when we went to the school and talked to them, the principal's like, choice in, but you're guaranteed to get in. I was like, well, you would think it'd be a little more difficult. Like, no. And it's kind of interesting. That's the only high school in America, at least I was told this, it's the only high school in America that's actually on a military installation.
I'm trying to think.
Like a public high school.
Because typically we've lived a couple of places where they were typically Department of Defense schools that were on base. But we did have one in Georgia, in Augusta, Georgia. And it was a public school, but it was only an elementary. I've never known a high school.
Yeah, interesting.
Or a middle. It's been an elementary, but never. And I think that's just because then it's a little bit easier for like single income families or family with just one vehicle to be able to, to be there to either pick kids up. Because if they live close enough to the school, they don't allow busing. So anyway.
Well, I think that's interesting in Colorado because I love a lot of people that come in that are moving here and they ask about school districts. I'm like, wherever you want to go.
It is. You just have to provide transportation.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think so. District 20 had one where we could drive. They had an out of district bus stop a couple spots through the city. So you had to drive to a certain bus stop and then they would pick them up. But you had to get there so stinking early. I was like, okay, screw that.
Was it like a drop-off line?
Yeah,
almost.
It was terrible. Yeah, it was terrible. But getting on base in the morning is difficult as well. Let me ask you a couple of real estate questions.
Okay.
Do you work with a team or on a team?
No, I'm a single agent.
Okay. And did you ever work on a team?
No.
Oh, right out of the gate, just solo.
Yeah. Well, I got my license in January of 2020.
Okay.
So.
And then around May or April, and
then and that March we closed down. So that really kind of. Not that I'm ever going to say that it was a lucky time for me for my career, but it gave me that time to kind of focus because we were still essential, but we didn't really have a lot of clients at that time. So it allowed me to kind of figure out those processes, take a lot of online classes, and try to figure out this business because that's the hard part is because you can take the class, get your license, but knowing how to operate your business is completely different.
So let me ask you that. We generally only have our podcast with successful agents, okay? And when we are talking to them, there's usually something that they've discovered that allows them to be successful. And meaning, I've heard every answer you can imagine, but it could be a lot of different things, right? It could be like, what is my one essential thing I have to do? Does that kind of make sense? Like, if I'll put it differently for you. You've been doing this 4 years. You have success. If you were to go to a new place or start over today, what one activity or one something actually defines and helps you succeed?
That's kind of a hard question.
Does that kind of make sense? Well, what? Okay, then what if you removed this one item, you would fail? Is it a software? Is it an activity? Is it a time blocking? Is it what is it? So
I've got a marketing degree, so I have a marketing background.
So everybody should go to school and get a bachelor's before.
No, they shouldn't. That doesn't impact. There's not many industries that you can operate a business and not need a degree.
Yeah.
And this is clearly one of them. I think it helps me.
Yeah.
It helps me because I put a focus on marketing.
Yeah.
I really struggled with that part though.
Why is that?
Because as an independent broker, I had to market myself.
Okay.
And that was difficult for me. And again, we kind of talked about this before this podcast. I'm not comfortable.
You're going to be a spotlight.
I don't like to be the spotlight.
Well, and as a real estate agent, that is a difficult thing for a lot of people. They want to help, and they're really good at real estate. They connect very well with people, but they don't want to go onto Instagram and Facebook and say, look at me, look what I did, look at my accomplishments. Instead, they want to connect with the person, help them individually. And they're like, in my opinion, like ninja agents, right? They're quietly going about their business and having success at it, helping one family at a time as much as they can, and not going out and just having a big circus show on social media.
Yeah, and this is not me.
You don't have a circus show on social media?
No.
Where do you advertise?
So I do have a website that does all my posts for me.
Okay.
So thank goodness.
Now, do you have to tell what posts, what to post?
No, it'll do anything. So, and then I think it's KCM. I think is Keeping Current Matters.
Yes.
But if I do post. I do on my Google My Business page. I try to do updates, and I'll do it on my Facebook business page.
Okay.
But I don't like to post.
So,
on my
but
Facebook.
KCM is more like national stats
Yes.
and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you're not doing a lot on social media then.
No.
Okay, so this is now we're starting to get into the fun, the nitty gritty of this. Okay,
Yeah.
so if you're not doing a lot, and are you buying leads?
No.
Okay, you're not buying leads. Mm-mm. So a lot of people are going to wonder, okay, we hit this boom where everybody became a real estate agent or a loan officer in the last 4 years, right? Now, let me take that back. 3.5 years. You were before the trend, right? So it was basically COVID hits. We come around the end of the summer of 2020, and everyone's like, wait, rates are 2.5, house prices are going up, people are selling. I watch a lot of HGTV. I can do this.
That's right.
Right? I can do this. And that created a flood of people coming in. And then April of last year, Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve decided to raise interest rates to kind of hold off inflation. Now all of a sudden, we have a lot of loan officers going out of business, a lot of real estate agents struggling, and yet you're still plugging along. And you're not doing what they tell you to do, which is go onto Instagram. You need to be doing TikTok, Nicole.
Yes.
That's what you need to be doing.
I don't have TikTok.
You don't even own TikTok.
I don't. No,
neither do I.
And anytime I click on something on Facebook that requires me to go, I click off. So I'm like, no, I'm good.
I do the same thing.
So
my son sends me TikToks of sometimes. If it doesn't open in a web browser, I'm like, forget it.
I know, I can't do it. So I think I was in a very unique position. We had always been. I had ran a business from home for 12 years.
So you told me you were a stay-at-home mom, but really you were out hustling.
Not really.
Okay.
I hustled when my kids were at school and when they went to bed. But
that's the ultimate hustle.
it is the ultimate hustle. I was
There's no two ways about
very
it.
tired, a lot of coffee. I think when I had that aha moment was everyone said, you need to share what you do.
Okay.
You need to tell people what you do, because how can they trust you, right? How can they use you if they don't know what you do? Which is
it's difficult, right?
It's absolutely true.
If they can't find you online, who is this person?
That's right.
What is going on?
And the best advertising is word of mouth. So, but I didn't believe in myself when I first got my license. I think majority of us kind of feel like
Self-doubt.
Self-doubt. I heard fake it till you make it so many times. I thought that's stupid.
Yeah.
Why would you ever fake it till you make it in a process where someone is depending on you for the largest financial purchase they've ever made in their life?
Yeah.
There's financial and legal ramifications.
Don't worry, I don't know what I'm doing, but
That's right, but I'm your girl.
I'm a good actor. I was a thespian in high school. I got this.
I know,
Yeah.
right? It just felt wrong. And so I dug deep in educating myself as much as I could, not just in the real estate realm, right? As far as what a realtor, comes up to. I wanted to understand all the industries that support. So I'm subscribed to Housing Wire, and I'm MBS Highway, and all these.
You actually subscribe to that?
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
You can as a realtor, yeah.
Well, I know you can as a realtor, but most people don't.
Oh man!
In fact, most LOs don't, and they it's shocking.
Oh my God! The programs that they have on there. I use them all the time.
Are you talking about the bid over ask calculators, stuff like that? Aren't those awesome?
They are. I mean, we're not really relevant now.
They were 2 years ago.
They were,
Yeah.
but I have actually used it even now. So I had a listing that closed in May, and we listed at $790 and went at $861. So, but it's a neighbor.
Wow.
It's a neighbor. So I, wanted them. They made a comment and about feeling like they had spent too much, and I thought, okay, I need them to feel comfortable in their home, right? Even though I wasn't the buyer's agent, I was the listing agent on that one. And so I did the bid over ask and showed them like at what point at year 3. That's with estimated gains in our market.
Yeah.
At year 3, you're going to be good.
Yeah. So
Even if
did you buy this house to be in here for a month, or did you buy this house to be in here for a long time?
It's long term. If you got a long term plan and it's 3 years or more, it really does. And I'm not just saying that because of what I do.
Well, I find that interesting that a lot of people when they go to buy a house, and I know you need to be worried about the investment, or when rates go up or when values go up or down and they already own a house, they get really caught up on, I overpaid by $10,000. Well, the house is worth exactly what the market will bear. The appraisal that's nice. It's like a justification point. The listing agent, the buyer's agent, that's nice. But what will the market pay for that? That's the value. So when you paid $860 for that house, you paid the going rate for that house. That's like going to the gas station, paying $4 a gallon, and then the next day it's $3.89. You're like, I got screwed.
That's right.
No, you didn't get screwed, dude. Like that was the going rate at the time, right? And the other part of that is you don't actually ever lose in real estate until you sell, and that's a common thing to be said. But when I bought my house, right before it was 2006, into 2006, so right before we had a big recession, right? I don't know if you've heard about that, but it was pretty devastating.
It was pretty devastating.
So we bought the house, and everybody's values dropped. Now on the east side of town, the values dropped significantly more, and that's when I came to the realization that the maturity level of trees in the yard will dictate I don't want to say vulnerability, but it'll dictate how quickly it'll raise or fall. So if you have like a little twig of a tree, it sounds silly, but when I looked around the city, everywhere that had old, mature landscaping, so to speak, like downtown, they lost some.
Impacted. They weren't impacted.
Yeah, they lost some, but they didn't lose $80,000 like you did in a new community, right? Which I find that kind of interesting. But when I bought it, we still lost, even though I bought an old house, we still lost value in our house, and that stayed that way for like 5 years. And I had several people tell me, well, you should just sell your house. I'm like, well, the payment's exactly the same as what it was before. If the value had gone up $100,000, payment's still the same. I don't have any more money. The house, the electricity costs the same. So it's a big mental game that you're playing of what that market's going to bear, but it doesn't really make a huge impact unless you plan on selling unless you plan on buying.
Unless you have to.
Yeah.
And then if you have to, just do it.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, you don't have that option, right? I mean, it's kind of like when you mention about the mature trees. That's true. It's just the same with real estate too. Like, you can either plant that tree, you can buy now, or you can buy later. Like for me, if someone has even a short-term goal, right? If it's less than 3 years, right? I'm one of those real estate agents that's going to say maybe it's best for you if you're a young couple and you're starting your career and you're not sure if this is the town for you. Maybe you should rent, because renting a home. Everyone says that's 100% interest. Yes, you're right, but it is providing the one thing that it's supposed to do, and it's providing shelter. I
know. I've seen wealth advisors tell you to rent. I did a loan for a doctor one time, and he did a 10-year loan, and he's like, I just want to get this thing paid off. He's like, I am considering selling this, just renting. He's like, I don't really like I have to make my payment anyway, and I don't really like being tied down like this. He
wanted the flexibility.
He said his thoughts was, hey, something goes out, water heater goes out, I call the landlord. I don't have to call the electrician. I don't have to meet him. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. It's just, hey, Miss Property Manager, take care of this. That's right. Or I'm going to get it fixed. You reimburse me, whatever. But it allowed a lot more freedom, and I do find that kind of interesting when most real estate agents, vast majority of real estate agents that I've talked to, will say, including you'll catch me saying this from time to time, is when's the best time to buy a house? Yesterday. When's the next best time? Today. hold on to that asset, right?
And hold on to it.
But I have talked, you're the second one in a week that I've talked to that said, it may not be right. Let's investigate this. Let's see if, and he actually, the guy I was talking to last week, he told me he got hung up on by, he's retired Air Force. And couple had been here for a year and a half. They're going to get PCS in a year and a half. And he said, he's like, I talked to him, and they said, we're going to get PCS. We know we're going to get PCS. And I said, what do you plan on, you want to be a landlord? We could rent this. No, not really. And after talking to him he's like, hey, it may not be the best thing for you to buy. He's like, I would love to sell you a house, but I'm just telling you, it might not be the best plan. Like, by the time you recoup your VA funding fee,
that's right,
and the realtor fees to sell later, you're actually, it really might not. He said they got mad. They told him, we're going to call an agent that actually wants to help us, and they hung up on him. And he's like, well, I wanted to help. I thought I was helping, by actually giving them real advice. They just wanted to be a homeowner. And that does come with a little bit of that's a tricky ground,
It
right?
is tricky.
So if they're hell-bent on buying, do you still help them?
Yes, and it's hard. So I guess because I'm a mom and I do have adult children, I don't feel like if I've got a young client, I kind of have, I probably do take more of a maternal view with them than I probably should. And this is the thing that I've come to realize, and it was just this past January, is that because I had a client that I had showed a couple of properties. They had been working with a lender. She wanted to purchase some investment properties. And I'm like, transition your current home, because she had like 2.6 interest rate. I'm like, transition to an investment property, right? That's the advice that I would take. That's the advice I gave her. But she wanted to sell it, and she wanted to be able to take the proceeds from that and then purchase.
Use it for a different,
She wanted for a different property. She was probably looking for a duplex or a fourplex.
Yeah.
And so she ended up listing that house with another agent, and it's because I wasn't telling her what she wanted to hear.
So you weren't lying to her.
I wasn't lying to her.
You weren't telling her the lie that she wanted to hear.
It's what she wanted to hear.
Yeah.
So that came, I kind of realized at that point that I can guide and advise, but ultimately my job is to help them accomplish their goals.
That's an interesting insight. I think to truly get to that point, I think a lot of people have, a lot of real estate agents have a hard time, because what they'll do is they'll either go on like, okay, I'm going to help you buy. I'm going to help you buy this house. No matter what, like, let's get into a house.
Yeah.
And then other times, I think when they get into that advisory role, and this happens in loans a lot, is we'll get into an advisory role and we'll talk about maybe buying a rate down, or we'll talk about refinancing or something like that. And in your head, and you say to yourself, this isn't a good deal. This isn't the best use of your money. Why do you want to buy down to a 4.5 interest rate when it's going to cost you X amount of dollars? It's going to take you forever to break even, where let me show you a better break even point, and then you take that extra 10 grand and you go invest it somewhere. Yes. But then all of a sudden they are like, but I want a 4.5 interest rate. Yes. The other bank said they'd give me a 4.5. So now you have to step back and say, okay, I'm not going to hardline and tell them they're making a poor financial decision.
That's right.
But at the same time, I'm not going to say absolutely that's right. So
I know,
it's
hard.
It's a strange balance, right?
Yeah, it is. But coming to that, it was in January. Whenever she had another agent list her property, they did end up selling it, which makes me sad, because I know that was her ultimate goal.
Yeah,
was to sell that property and then be able to probably more than likely buy a duplex or a fourplex.
Yeah,
she wanted to use that VA. She
sure.
wanted the full use of that VA eligibility, but she didn't get to accomplish her goal. So, but that was whenever I realized, like, just because I may think I know what's best for them,
and that's
not my job.
That's an interesting thing. I've done refinances for people where I'm going to save them, say, $300 a month. It's going to cost $2,500 in closing costs, and they're going to be in their house for 10 years. I'm like,
done.
Oh my gosh, this is probably the best financial move you can possibly make right now. And they're like, well, let me think about it. Like, what is there to think about? And then other times I've gone, I've saved somebody like $32 a month. They're like, yes. I'm like, no, this is not a good. But at the same time, ultimately it's their choice, but you do have to guide properly on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and was pretty hard for me to realize, we're commission based.
Yeah.
So there is that, even if they've been personally referred and their friend used us and said that, they're great, like you can trust them, they took really good care of our family. There's that apprehensive, it's hard to kind of cross that line to where they're listening to what we've heard, what we're saying, but we know it.
Yeah.
Backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yeah.
So this is a different viewpoint of a product like a refinance that they've possibly never done before.
Yeah.
So
and they've used the Google machine to be educated.
Yes.
And their in-laws and everybody else that has something to say about it.
I mean, that's kind of what we find in our market right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
People are listening to everyone, but those of us.
Okay, so you subscribe to MBS Highway.
Yes.
Then that means that you are at least on top of things enough to realize that you will see a week later or 3 days later news stuff come out, and you're like, well, that's like 3 days old and it's already shifted.
Yes.
Why, but they use big, catchy phrases.
Yes, yeah, 7 to 10 days later.
Isn't that bizarre?
It is.
Yeah, it's just you can't rely on that.
You can't.
It's very, very dangerous to rely on that. Let me ask you another real estate question. If you could, because you were a new agent 4 years ago, and you had some success. There's two levels of this question. The first question is, did you have any personal struggles that made you think maybe this isn't the best thing for me?
Mm-mm.
No, just
Not
all
one.
in.
All
Sweet.
in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, second part of that question. You have a new agent that comes in, right? That new agent comes in. What are you going to tell them? What do you have to do to win?
You have to educate yourself.
Okay.
You have to know everything and then more.
Okay. Give me an example. Like how does a new agent educate themselves? Like what did you do?
I read a lot.
Okay.
I read a lot, and I wanted to know, kind of like, of course, I don't know anything close to what I need to know for the mortgage industry, but I wanted to know about title too.
Yeah.
Like the one thing that I think that I could see, because at one point I was a marketing consultant, is big picture. I wanted to take a step back and look at this industry big picture. So I don't know another industry. There might be some, and I just haven't come across them. Whereas real estate agents, we both compete and we collaborate at the exact same time. Interesting. We do.
How do you mean? Well, no, I guess you have to, because you're competing for business, but simultaneously you have to have a good transaction, a fiduciary responsibility to do that for your clients, and you're dealing with somebody who maybe you competed with last week.
That's right.
And they may have, do they take great offense to you winning, or did you take offense to losing, or something like that, right?
We all have friends, right, that know several agents, right? So, we do. We all, I've got several friends that I've referred other agents to before I got my license. And I know that puts them in a pickle. Mm-hmm. Like, who do I choose?
Yeah.
Do I choose my friend, or do I choose the agent that she referred me? So at that point...
Neither.
That's what I tell them. I'm like, you're not going to hurt my feelings, because to me, if someone chose someone else, to me, it's not that I'm not good enough for them to trust me to help them, because I know that, right? Yeah. To me, I look at and view it as they value my friendship more than a business transaction. And because I have a business background, it is business. It should never be personal. No one should ever choose someone. That's like, I don't know, choosing someone because you're friends with them to... be your
orthodontist or something.
Yes.
Well, I think most people choose people because they are friends, or because they have a comfort level of some sort with them, right? And because if you think about it, if we were purely a commoditized business, meaning just dollars and cents, you would go online and you would pick somebody to list your house for $18, right? And hey, I'm going to put it on the MLS. But you want a higher level of service than that, right? You want a convenience service as well, a convenience fee, so to speak. You want somebody who knows the area. You want somebody so now all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's not just pure dollars and cents. So I have to free myself up, and I have to trust the person. And because I'm going to be, I guess, nervous maybe, I've never sold a house, I've never bought a house, whatever the case may be, I want somebody that I feel confident and comfortable talking to. that I can speak the same language on. So if I get with somebody who's very, very like direct, you can buy this house, it's a great investment, and I'm a little bit, well, I want to, I don't really like the guy that much, right? Like I need somebody to speak my language and help me understand it.
It's a comfort level.
Yeah.
Because even if you have to buy or sell, even if you're moving or relocating, and you have to, I guess I've always had like a little bit of a different perspective because we did move every couple of years.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
It's
like, guess what? You're moving.
That's right. And this is where you're going and you're going to love it. Right.
By the way, check-in dates this day.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So I've kind of always had a little bit of a different perspective on moving.
It's pretty hardcore if you think about it. You just made me think about that. Like, hey, you're going to move on this day, be there here, and you're going to love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah. And so home was always kind of temporary.
Yeah.
So it was about establishing my kids in school and making them comfortable and then making the best of it. So I worked pretty hard. We always volunteered in the schools, and my husband, our kids were always in sports, so he always took pictures or helped coach and all those things because we just wanted to kind of give back to those communities because we're like, love us. You know, because
I'm trying to love it. I need you to love it.
I need you to love it. And that kind of helps, right? When you feel connected to your community, it does impact how you feel about being there.
So how does somebody getting PCS here, how do they get in touch with the right agent? Because there's a lot of people that just get a designation, and kudos to them for getting the designation. That's great. I don't have the designation. Well, I don't sell real estate either, but great that they have it, right? They're doing the best they can with where they're at. But there's a different level of understanding when you've moved 13 times with 3 children over 30 years, and you understand that. How does a PCS person coming in, how do they get in touch with the right people? Like, where do they need to search? Where do they look? How do they find that?
They can't really, it's
because people pay to be on base to advertise, so you think that that's the right one. People get the MRP or whatever veteran specialist, so they think that's the right one. And maybe they're very good, I don't know. But if I wanted to, I would want to, I mean, it's like talking to a financial investor. I want somebody who's actually investing.
That's right.
Right, somebody who is up and down with the market. So how do they get in touch with somebody like that?
It's hard. So the Colorado Springs does a really good job. They have a website that lands. I've got a friend. Her name's Jessie. She just she was a special assistant to the mayor. She just took over a job, and she's going to be, I think it's the military liaison.
Okay.
So Colorado Springs really does a good job and really puts forth a lot of effort to help those incoming, right? And those that are here, those whether they're active duty, retired, or just veterans, they really do a good job of having a lot of resources. The problem is getting that resource into the hands of the people that are coming. It's pretty difficult. So there is a website that you can go to, and from that you can scroll through and find all kinds of resources. But real estate agents and lenders are not going to be on there. We don't advertise on that. It's just about the resource.
Yeah.
So for anyone that is coming here, whether they're military or just relocating, if they do have a resource, a friend or a family member or someone here, it's really reaching out to them, saying, who's the best, who are the best brokerages, anyone that you've ever worked with, because that word of mouth, which is the best advertising, we know that. We can advertise independently if we want to, but really a lot of hurdles are already crossed.
Would it be advised or reasonable for a veteran that's getting moved to Colorado Springs and they've never lived here before? Maybe it's their first house, maybe it's their 5th house, whatever. But they're moving here. Would it be advised for them to call different brokers? You work for Platinum Group, right? To call different brokerages and say, do you have an agent with X amount of experience that has been PCS'd with their family?
Yes.
To me, that would be
yes.
Like I'm getting now I know I'm getting a seasoned real estate agent, and I know that I'm going to get somebody who has lived what I'm living.
Absolutely. That when I took the MRP designation, it was, I got my license in January, and I took that MRP in February.
Right out of the, just
right
bam.
Out of the gate.
Like
Dude,
you know what you're going after.
Let's go, right?
Yeah.
And I was really shocked. There were about 74 agents in that class.
Wow.
And which indicates and shows you something else too, right? That there were a lot of people that are wanting to help those incoming. But what was shocking to me, it was only those that were prior military or military spouses that seemed to have this understanding, because they would be like, yeah, it's really weird. Like, you know, I'll work with them, but they only come in and they want to get it all done in a weekend.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's all they've got.
Yeah.
They have a weekend. They
flew in.
Yes.
They're getting this crap figured out.
Yes. Block it off for them.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, like, you might have to miss a kiddo's ball game, and I hate that.
Yeah.
I will do but they have a weekend.
That's what that particular job takes at that particular time.
Absolutely.
Right.
We we were moving from California. We were supposed to go to North Carolina. And our orders got changed en route. So we had 4 weeks. We had 4 weeks in one day, right? So we had to report to Huntsville, Alabama. And I literally hopped up on Zillow, and I looked at a couple of homes, and I called the agent, really straight off of Zillow.
Huh.
This was about 18 years ago.
Yeah.
And I called, and I said, hey, we just got orders. I don't even have tickets, but is this house still available for sale? And she said, yes. She goes, do you have an agent? I'm like, no. And she's like, well, I'd love to help you or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, I'm not sure when I can call. Let me hang up with you, and I'll call and see when I can get flights.
Yeah.
So that was a Wednesday. So I flew in on Friday. We submitted an offer on Saturday, and then I flew out on Sunday.
Holy cow.
Right? I mean, and that's
what it takes. And so had that agent not been willing to do that and say, well, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Let's go look at it Monday, or no, I literally have 48 hours to tour houses, find a house, see what part of the city I want to live in, make an offer, counter the offer, be done, and get back home.
And come back home.
Wow, that's crazy.
That's right. So I think if someone is moving here, whether they're military or not, working with someone, call those brokerages, right?
Yeah.
Or do some, you can go on their websites and kind of scroll through. A lot of websites, a lot of brokerages will have bios on each one of the agents. So just kind of do your research there to see if you think that they would be a good fit. So
what part of the country do your kids live in, if you don't mind me asking?
they're all in Colorado.
They're all in Colorado.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, this next question is slightly loaded, so I don't know how you're going to answer it. Okay.
No.
Just no.
No.
Yellow. Do you want any of your children to be real estate agents? Would you want them to do that?
I've got one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
And in Springs, or where are they?
Yeah, he's in the Springs. And that's kind of a loaded question, too, because I don't know if he'll ever listen it, but Evan, I'm talking about you. If they all wanted to.
Evan, she wants to help Evan.
I want to help Evan. Anyone wants to help Evan. I would love that. That would probably be, it would be my family. It would be the only team that I would probably feel comfortable.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's not that... this is going to be loaded.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, I might have to get a little more comfortable.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep going with this question a bit too.
A lot of times with team setups, it is about helping specifically those new agents.
Okay.
Right? They don't know how to lead gen. They don't know how to get business.
Yep.
And those team leads help that. They generally have mentorship programs, and this is how they're successful, those team leads. And this is how I was successful. And they create these processes, and everyone on the teams follows that process. So the information and the guidance is there, but I think that's slightly flawed in that not everyone operates the same way.
And very few people operate the exact same way. There's some procedural stuff that can obviously be passed to a lot of people, but this is a very humanized business.
It's very humanized.
Yeah.
There's so much emotion, right?
Yeah.
So I think I actually took it twice. It was a business planning class that I took from Steve Perry.
Okay.
And before we took the class, we had to make a promise of what we were going to make in that 90-day period. And I was like, I'm not signing that because I can't guarantee I can do that. I don't push.
Yeah.
I provide.
Ooh,
right?
Interesting. Yeah.
I can't push because once you push, then you're a salesman.
Yeah.
And I'm not a salesperson.
Yeah. Well, you are, but you're just a good one.
Maybe. But to me, I just want to provide a service.
Yeah.
And I want to be a resource. Those two things. And as long as I continue to do those two things, I've been fortunate enough that I've loved all my clients and served them well enough to where they continue to refer me. So, which is fantastic, right? But with those teams, truly, and I would recommend this to probably any agent, actually anyone that works in any kind of business, is to take the DISC profile.
Yeah.
Have you done it?
Yes, I have.
So
I've got problems.
No, they're not problems.
I've got particular tendencies, I should say.
Well, we all do.
Yeah.
But it's really, I think what would be really important is, because I'll every once in a while, about once or twice a year, I'll go back and I'll kind of dig deep into that DISC profile and read it. Because I think, and if I had a team, I wouldn't assign or give certain tasks to certain people just based on, hey, we need a transaction coordinator or we need a buyer's agent. It would be very specific to their DISC profile.
Who's going to thrive in this position?
Yes.
Who's going to feel fulfilled in this position and love this position?
Absolutely.
And it's very difficult when you go to hire and you're like, I like the person. They have a good personality, so they're going to do good. Well, the job itself doesn't fit with what they're doing. So there's a couple interesting points that I wanted to mention. First off is, have you ever put your hands together and pushed? Have you ever done that? No. Put your hands together. Okay, now take your right hand and push as hard as you can on your left hand. And do it harder, as hard as you, just until you start shaking. It's hard. Okay, quit pushing back. Just push as hard as you can. Okay, now stop. What happened? What did your left hand do?
I don't know.
Your left hand did not. Your left hand resisted.
Oh.
So
this one came down and this one.
I actually told you to stop pushing back, and you kept when you push, you're going to get so when you said you don't push, you get that resistance instantly. So when you try to push a client or push a situation or push yourself, oftentimes you get resistance, as opposed to identifying what you want to do, having patience and a good plan. And there's a big difference in that. Now, when you were talking about your DISC profile and you mentioned being a salesperson, there's a couple interesting points on that. And one is, and this is a self-discovered thing. This isn't like actual like neuroscience or anything. It was just self-discovered. Is we generally are attracted to people for one of two reasons, in my experience. It's either because they are like us or we aspire to be like them. And somehow this seems to hold true. Somehow we are, if you're like me, we have something in common. And if I'm a chemically balanced human, then I think that I'm an okay person. You know, if somebody were to ask you, Nicole, do you think you're honest? Yeah. Do you love your family?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Are you generally pretty kind?
Yes.
Okay. So I could go on and on and on, right? Now, what if you met somebody who kind of acted like you? Well, they're honest, kind, love their family. This is a good person. Because I love me, I must love them. Now all of a sudden we're connected, right? Or the other possibility is there's somebody you want to be like, right? So let's say that you're like that person. Then we, if you're building a team, oftentimes we're going to go hire that person that is similar to us in some way, because we have some sort of connection there, right? There's a subconscious connection there. And I think it's a huge mistake in hiring a very personable person to sit there and dig through paperwork.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, man, just hang me. Like, this is right. Like enough of this.
It's not. They're not going to do it.
Yeah, or they're not going to be able to sustain it.
Yes.
Right. They're not going to sustain it, and they're going to feel horrible, and they're going to want to quit.
And they will.
Yeah. The only way is if you have somebody who their determination far outweighs their reservation. Right. So meaning that determination is like, if I have to do this to get to there, I'm doing it. Like, that's all there is to it.
That's a high
right?
D.
That's a very high D.
It is a very high D.
It's a very driven person.
Which works.
Yeah.
I did last year I took ninja selling. And so it was the week long. And at the end, our last day, they had us separate in all four corners. They kind of read out a little bit, you know.
Did you actually fight like ninjas at any point?
No, we didn't. That would have been cool.
No bow staffs, Chinese stars.
No,
Okay.
I'd have gone back. I'd have taken it again this
You're
year.
like, I'm taking it twice.
I'm doing it. Let's do this.
I'm practicing my nunchuck skills. Yeah.
Whack myself right in the face. That would have been hilarious. But so we all got in the corners, right? Mm-hmm. They kind of read off, you know, D's, you know, dominant, direct, you know, very goal oriented and driven. I's, you're an influencer, you know, all the things, right? S and C's. So everyone get D's here, I's here, S's here, and C's here. And everyone went, right? So we had a pretty good number in D. We had a lot of people in I.
In I, yeah.
Right? A lot of people in S, not as much as I, but a lot of people in S. And then probably, I'm going to say equal amount to D's were C's.
Oh, interesting.
I know. I thought that was interesting too. And so
I could see how a bunch of I's would be in real estate.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I say that because I'm a 99 I.
You went like this, and you're like,
oh,
yeah.
But what was cool is he didn't start with D, right? He started with I, and he started going, okay, well, if this is, like, they got kind of deep into that I. And so there were a couple people. There was one person that left I and went to D. And I thought, oh, where are they going, right?
Huh.
I'm like, where are you going? Like, come back, right? And then
we can influence this guy. Let's get him.
They went around the room, right?
Yeah.
And there were a couple people that went back and forth between I and S. And then one person that went from S to C, but D's did not move. And I thought, like, how great that is, because they are very confident, they are very determined, and they know who they are.
Yeah.
And they operate their businesses based on that.
Yeah.
So I've got a friend that's real high D, and literally, if I was to give him a list of 100 prospects, right, I need you to call these 100 people, and one person will say yes, and you will get a commission,
you're gonna make whatever.
Yeah, whatever. He's like, done, and he's
Sweet.
on it.
You know, it'll be done by the end of the day. Not a problem.
And I couldn't. Even if
after
I knew.
call 8, you're like, you know what? I don't know where this one person is, but I do not want to call 92 more people.
Can I just find them, right?
Yeah.
So I think I think you had asked earlier, like, if a new agent, like, do the DISC profile.
Find out where you are.
Figure out where you are, and then reevaluate it. Go back and look at it over and over and over again throughout your business before you do your business plan. All those things.
And that's going to change, or I shouldn't say that's going to change. It's going to help influence on how you're going to run your business and understand why you're doing that. When you go to a class and they say, hey, you need to make this many phone calls, but you're a really high C, and you're like, that's not my comfort zone. I'm very uncomfortable with this. Maybe I could just be a TC or something like that.
That's right.
But you can discover that.
That's right. And know, like, what parts of the business, because it's really difficult for me, because I'm a 99I and a 99S, is to give away my business, like, because I don't have a transaction coordinator or an executive assistant, because I'm like, they hired me.
Interesting. Yeah.
They didn't hire.
So what would your goal be then? Like, if in 3 years, if you could have this, or 10 years, or whatever, you could have this any way that you wanted. Let's meet in the middle. Let's say 5 years. You could have it any way you wanted in real estate. What would it look like for you?
I don't know. I want to get comfortable. I want to have someone that I can trust that can do some of just the paperwork.
Okay.
I don't mind the paperwork.
Right.
I'm a 72 in C, so I don't mind that either. I'm a 14 in D.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have guessed that. That's interesting. Yeah. Wow.
Which kind of makes sense, because like, when I go to a restaurant, I'll pick 3 things. Honestly, I'd eat anything.
Yeah.
That's on the menu.
Yeah.
Right? So I will pick 3 things, and I'll ask the server. I was like, well, I'm thinking about these. What would you? And they're like, oh, they'll tell me. Yeah. I go with what they say every single time. And I always thought that was weird, because I'm the only one anywhere we've ever been that did that, right?
Yeah.
And then whenever I read that DISC profile, I thought, oh, there we go.
Well, you need and that social proof is actually not abnormal, right? It's like, okay, look, I need. It's the same reason that a woman will say, hey, how do I look in this? Or what about this? Hey, do these shoes go? They already have their opinion. They either need justification, or they need like, oh shoot, I misread that one, right?
That's right.
Whatever it is. I don't do that at all. I go to a restaurant, I'm like, I want the burger with this, and this. Thank you.
That's right. They're
like, well, no, don't you want some of this? Not really,
No,
but
I
I'd really like exactly what I asked for.
That's
is what I
right.
would really like.
Yeah.
So there's a couple more interesting questions, just two more.
Okay.
A couple more. The first one is, if you could be a loan officer for a week, I'm going to rephrase that. You had to be a loan officer for a week. Okay. What would you do different than the way you see loan officers do stuff now? Like, what would be very important, and what would you make sure you did?
I don't know. What I would do different? Your jobs are hard.
They can be. Yes.
They can be.
Yeah.
So anytime I go under contract, I have, on the buy side, I have a letter. I do it for sellers and buyers. But it's like you just went under contract, and it's like, these are your responsibilities. They have 3. You need to schedule. I give them a list of home inspectors. So you have to schedule and pay for the home inspection, and this is my availability. You have to drop off the earnest money, right?
So you kind of give them a to-do list.
I give them a to-do list.
Yeah.
I manage everything. You don't have to worry about anything. But those 3 things you have to do. And that third thing is you have to provide those documents that the lender requests. And it needs to be done. And it's number 10, right? And I'm like, they are going to ask you for things that they've asked you before, right, to get pre-approved. They need it again. They're not asking you to create busy work for you.
Yeah.
It is required for them to loan.
Yeah.
So
it's and I think you can write a letter to Congress to change the rules if you don't like it.
That's right.
You can
Go
get
ahead.
a new head of director for the Fannie Mae. Or something. Yeah.
We'll see how quickly that comes down the pipe, right? So, but
It'll
I'm
happen
like,
before closing.
of course, yeah, it's no big deal. You can do it.
Don't worry, I wrote a letter. I don't have to
But
do the bank
I'm like,
statements.
don't be mean to them.
Yeah, yeah.
They can be mean to you guys.
It can. So I talked to a loan officer yesterday. Works at another company, and we try to talk to. It's kind of like you. It's like you're in competition, but you also
you collaborate.
You collaborate. So I was talking to a loan officer yesterday, and that was being brought up of usually the more challenged borrowers are usually the ones that are the most challenging to work with. Meaning,
wealthy.
Yeah, yeah.
They
I almost named one.
challenging
Well,
too.
there's a couple. If you have somebody who's like a high engineering mindset,
Yes.
they don't really like the idea that things are on speculation in the beginning. Well, in the beginning, I don't know exactly how much your taxes and your insurance and your